So, hello everybody, and we're going to present to you the mBridge project, which is what we call a multiple CBDC project. But I'm sure that if you're not familiar with the word mBridge or multiple CBDC, that we need to explain to you a little bit what that means. So we're going to show you just a few slides, and these few slides, only 4, so pay attention because there's only 4 slides. We're going to set the backdrop of explaining to you what it means. So first, over to you, Colin. Can you just set the stage for us? We've shown here the front page of the published report, and it would be great if you can just tell us in a few words, what is that multiple CBDC?
Certainly. I think as you can see from the slides, that has very much captured the essence of our project at this stage. If you look closely at the squares in the slides, you can actually see the iconic buildings in each of the participating jurisdictions. Okay, so you can recognize it would include mainland China, Thailand, U.A.E, and also Hong Kong, and you would see the roads running through it. Actually, that represents the connectivity that we want to build. And if you look more closely into it, you will actually see the lorries carrying the cargoes. And that's the reason, that's the target that we want to achieve. We want to facilitate trade. So, but you may ask, since you are the BIS Innovation Hub, Hong Kong Center head, where is the BIS? It's up in the sky. On the upper right-hand side, you can see BIS Innovation Hub Center. So that's a project, sponsored by BIS Innovation Hub Center, and with the participation of all 4 of our jurisdictions in order to solve the issue of connectivity. And specifically, we are on payment. I hope that will give more or less a background to audience about what we are doing.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. So I spot that there are some coins on these lorries that are going through these roads. So these represent the central bank digital coins, so central bank digital currency, or CBDC. And so there are indeed the central bank digital currency of 4 jurisdictions on this platform at this stage. The 4 jurisdictions that Colin has cited and that are represented on this panel. And these coins can get effectively exchanged on this platform cross-border. So over to you, Shu-Pui, if you can explain the next slide. So what did we were here last year. You were virtual, all of you, I think, but now you're more present. So tell us, what did we accomplish this year?
Okay, first of all, salam alaikum. Okay, because some of my colleagues from the U.A.E are watching, so I need to say hello. Okay, this project, this pilot, I think is the first ever, the largest scale in terms of CBDC pilot using real value transactions. Okay, some figures there. We have involved 20 commercial banks, okay, in 4 jurisdictions. I think probably one of the largest in terms of scale, in terms of participating banks. And then we have done exactly 164 transactions, okay, including cross-border FX transactions. And then in terms of the issuance of CBDC, equivalent to $12 million by 4 central banks, okay, in a period of 6 weeks for the pilot scheme. And then in terms of the actual transaction done by the commercial banks, including cross-border FX transaction, we are talking $22 million. So that's what I'm saying is, I think based on my understanding and knowledge of all these CBDC projects in all jurisdictions, in all part of the world, this is the largest, first ever using real money, covering trade settlement, covering cross-border interbanks and FX transactions.
Yeah, so in sum, these were real transactions on behalf of corporates. If corporates wanted to make a payment, for example, from Hong Kong to China, the payment was facilitated through the platform. And this distinguishes this particular prototype from any of the others which have not handled these real on-platform settlement for real transactions and real payments. So this pilot went on only for 3 weeks. So that's just to give you a bit of an impression of it could obviously ramp up if the platform stayed available. So next, over to you, Mr. Mu. So obviously we talk about a platform, but what is that? I mean, from a practical standpoint, you need some technology. So how does it work? Who's connected where and by which technology?
Okay, thank you, Bénédicte. I think there's a virtual tour to our whole platform. Now we are heading for the back office. And we actually, you can see from the slide, we developed a native system for the mBridge. At its core, the mBridge ledger, we call it MBL. We designed the architecture with a Lego bricks approach. So you can see from that there's, like 4 bricks that stick together. That is a module approach instead of a silo approach. It allows participating central banks and monetary authorities to validate, adapt, and extend functionality according to their different requirements, and aims to support each jurisdiction's autonomy in implementation and adoption of the platform. And with the technical design, like the decoupling of execution and storage, the MBL, which is the mBridge ledger, has already achieved a top-tier performance with low latency. Looking ahead with the development of a new dynamic threshold consensus protocol called Dashing, which is also the Chinese name Monkey King, which is now under testing. The MBL will also achieve higher efficiency and robustness under transactional network conditions, laying a foundation for the mBridge to become an international payment infrastructure in the future. Of course, you can see from the slides, there are 4 central banks or monetary authorities at the core connected on one platform for the CBDC issuance and settlement. And in turn, we add 20 commercial banks for the pilot bridging economies. And of course, it's not a prerequisite for participating central banks or monetary authorities to have their own domestic CBDC system before they can join the mBridge. And then mBridge can dock with both CBDC network and existing payment systems like RTGS or FPS. Therefore, it could interoperate with existing financial infrastructure. Back to you, Bénédicte.
Thank you. Great. So over to you, Vachira. So the last slide we have here is this one. mBridge is obviously a story of creating connectivity, right, and network effects. So could you talk a bit about this?
Yes, thank you, Bénédicte. As Mr. Mu has mentioned, we have 5 banks from each country. So overall, it's 20 banks participating in this. This graph, this slide can show you that the way we do the transaction is a P2P. So it means that bank to bank. So we can cut the corresponding banks. With the 20 banks that we have in the pilot, we can have more than 150 nodes, 150 connection, but in this pilot, within less than a month, we have a 41 connection in the platform. So it means that Bank A can transfer directly to bank in another country without corresponding bank. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that summary. That was very useful. Okay, so now we're going to go over to an open discussion about the platform. So, Colin, I'm a lawyer myself by background, but a lot of people think the law is a very boring matter, right? So I want to hear from your perspective, how important, as a chair of the legal committee, how important do you think legal aspects here were to the pilot and also maybe to the future development of the platform?
Well, thank you, Bénédicte. I think all of us here actually share the vision that it is not just a technological exploration. We do have an objective to really operationalize the platform. So apart from the very important technical work, which is in the capable hand of the Digital Currency Institute of the People's Bank of China, the Bank of Thailand's colleague is taking care of the policy work. Central Bank of U.A.E is taking care of the business use cases. And the HKMA is taking care of the legal work stream. Well, as the chair of the legal subcommittee, I do see that there are two levels of legal work involved. First is about the legal structure needed to support the platform to function as a value transfer system. So that will include the legal safeguards to ensure the rights, responsibility, and liabilities of all the participants. And also about the legitimacy and the finality of the currents of the value that pass through the system. In fact, that's very much like what we have for our domestic large value payment system. We need a similar structure to support the operation of the platform. Only that this platform cut across different jurisdictions, and it also will be using different types of technologies. Another level of legal work is how it will interface with the legal requirement in different jurisdictions. On one hand, we want to streamline the payment as much as possible. On the other hand, we need to ensure that the whole thing will still be compatible with the legal requirement in different jurisdictions. For example, on data privacy, on AML, capital ethics controls, that sort of issues. And also fundamentally, we need to ensure that we have our rights and mandates to participate in the project. So I think a key merit of this pilot is that it is not just playing around with simulated figures in the platform. The transaction actually carries genuine value, and behind those things, there are genuine international trades involved. So we do see the lawyers, compliance people are quite seriously taking a quite serious attitude towards the whole thing, because understandably, we don't want to mess things up. So on this one, for the purpose of the pilot, first we have set up what we call minimal viable legal arrangement to support the operation of the pilot platform. We have got agreements for participants, terms and conditions for the platform, and terms and conditions for the use of the CBDC. On the other hand, taking the opportunity of the platform, we also did what we call an initial scan on the legal mandate or compatibility of the platform with the individual jurisdiction's legal regime, because we are operating on civil law regime and common law regime. So I think down the road, we will still be working on these two dimensions, the legitimacy of the platform itself, and also on the compatibility of the platform with the legal requirement of the individual jurisdictions. So I think there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah. I think you're right. So CBDC itself, central bank digital currency, is a new concept, and it needs to be analyzed under every national law. Here, though, we are speaking about wholesale CBDC as opposed to retail CBDC. So the legal situation is slightly less complex from that perspective, because it is about operating a new payment infrastructure. And as you know, central banks have a standing mandate to be operating efficient payment infrastructures. So maybe a question for you, Vachira, equally so a topic that when we talk about technology, oftentimes people forget about the legal issues, but the other things people forget about is policy matters, right? And so how important do you think policy matters are for this project? And which of these policy questions are forefront to your mind? And I'm thinking here, monetary policy, monetary sovereignty, and all these kind of questions. What's your perspective on this?
Thank you, Bénédicte. I think policy is quite important. And first of all, let me start by the overviewing that the principle that we adopt to do the policy is, the first thing is do no harm. What does it mean by do no harm? It means that central bank digital currency issued by central bank, one central bank, should not or will not disrupt other central banks on monetary policy or financial stability mandate. In addition to that, we have some principle about data protection, privacy of the consumer, protection for consumer, as well as the fair competition. In order to do all this kind of thing, all the policy requirement or even the legal requirement or even for Shu-Pui, even who do the business requirement, we are the one who put all the requirement to the technical subcommittee, Mr. Mu, to do this kind of things. Based on do no harm policy, based on do no harm principle, I can divide it into 3 aspects of the policy. The first one is foreign exchange. With the foreign exchange, as Mr. Mu has mentioned, the mBridge use a legal brick or a modular approach. What does that mean? It means that each jurisdiction can have their own compliance. So in the case of Bank of Thailand's controls, we have some rules that non-resident can hold how much non-resident can hold Thai baht. So we can put all these requirements into each jurisdiction. And in this pilot, both Bank of Thailand and Central Bank of U.A.E has the requirement that at the end of the day, the foreign bank has to redeem the CBDC at the end of the day, while HKMA and PBC allow foreign bank to hold CBDC overnight. So this, but we know that this kind of thing, if we put too much restriction, it can create some friction. For example, in this case, we see that we have some FX foreign exchange liquidity issue. I think that this issue can be explored further in maybe next year or next phase. On the second front is the monetary policy side. The mBridge is designed to accommodate wholesale cross-border CBDC for the commercial bank to do the transfer and payment. So this will not have some impact on money supply. It's just only change the form of the M0. So at the beginning, we see that this will not have some impact on monetary policy. And in designing the use case, we try to thinking of all possible transaction type that we can do. And then we all agree to eliminate some of the transaction type that might have some impact on the policy issue. For example, we all agree that we will eliminate the case that we use the foreign exchange to do the domestic payment, which maybe lead to currency substitution impact. That's why we eliminate it. In some, I think that the design of the design of the policy that we design will help mitigate the impact of the monetary policy. And last one, Colin has already mentioned about the data privacy. The mBridge help us on the real-time surveillance. So the central bank can monitor real-time transaction of the transaction or the balance of our own bank. But of course, in doing this, we have to do need to know. We have to adopt the need to know principle. So just only some that we can see. For example, the Bank of Thailand, we can see the transaction that transact by Thai banks or the transaction that other foreign banks do with the Thai currency. I think that's all we have to do. In addition to that, the spirit of decentralization is quite important. We all agree that each central bank needs to build capacity to host their own node in order to help at least avoid single point of failure and to retain control over their own data and governance. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for touching on all these points. So, Mr. Mu, in your introduction, you already mentioned, for example, that this system does not require a country to have a live CBDC, right? So could you maybe explain how this new infrastructure would connect to, in an ideal state, how it would connect to local RTGS systems? And in tandem, while you discuss that, I would be interested to get your perspective as well of why DLT. Very often people say, like, why are you using distributed ledger technology? So I think in this case, we have a pretty strong use case for DLT because it's a multi-participant, a multi-party network. But if you can touch on these things and then how countries could become part of the network, that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Bénédicte. As Governor Vachira just said, the application of CBDC in a cross-border use cases face the challenge of different regulatory requirements in a heterogeneous technical standards across different jurisdictions. Specifically, the mBridge can be docked with domestic CBDC system to support transfer of CBDC to the mBridge. It can also be docked with existing traditional payment systems such as RTGS or FPS, so that the central banks or the monetary authorities can issue their own CBDC on the mBridge without establishing their own CBDC system. For example, on-bridge CBDCs can be issued with the same amount of refunds deducted from the relevant bank accounts or the reserve account in the RTGS system. And the docking module could also improve the scalability of the mBridge project, reduce costs, and enhance the access for the participants. And of course, as you said, the reason why we use DLT, because a lot of tests and experiment show that the DLT actually is not so perfect for a payment system. But why do we use DLT in this CBDC bridge? That because we have so many parties involved, so many central banks or monetary authorities involved. We have each of us actually have a different system, different regulatory system, different capital management system. So in order to solve the issues of the heterogeneous issues or the trust issues, the DLT is perfect for the self-management or autonomy management by each jurisdictions. So that will make the DLT is perfect IT technology could be used in our mBridge. Thank you. Back to you, Bénédicte.
Thank you. So over to you, Shu-Pui. So we took as a first use case the trade use case because it's an obvious one. So it is PVP, right? So my question to you is, do you see that as it definitely is the largest opportunity? So the question is that the sole use case for mBridge, or you see more use cases down the line? And if so, which ones?
Okay, I would like to share, 3 examples in terms of business use cases to support what I believe, throughout my 20-something years central banking experience involving a financial market infrastructure project. I see this one like the most promising project that I have ever experienced and done before. Okay, first one, you mentioned international trade settlement. I would like to use that to start with. To my surprise, when we kind of announced it in the U.A.E. to the banking sector, we are going to do a pilot using real money. Initially, I was a bit worried, because using real money, real value transactions, banks might be reluctant to do that. Okay, they may let other banks to start and see what happened. But I kind of received overwhelming requests for participation. So I need to, not answering phone call, forget about WhatsApp, WeChat, and particularly Chinese banks. Okay, we only allow 2 of them coming in because the other 3, 2 international bank, 1 local bank. So the reason after talking more to them, and you look at the U.A.E. Very unique situation that you look at the trade, 60% China trade with the Middle East and North Africa region transit through the U.A.E. Okay, we have over 4,000 to 5,000 Chinese companies operating in the U.A.E. with over kind of 300,000 Chinese working there. And China is the top trading partner of the U.A.E., particularly for oil and gas. And GCC countries look at that as a whole, now probably the highest growth countries among the world, due to good or bad reasons. So when we go to the actual transaction, when we spoke with banks, interesting, okay. For example, for oil and gas transaction, the Chinese corp paying to the U.A.E., they are very happy to use ECNY, okay, very direct, and then pay to the U.A.E. And the corporate in the U.A.E. are more than happy, welcome to receive ECNY, okay. And then we also receive requests that paying U.A.E. tax, okay, because you purchase something from U.A.E., you got to pay the tax. And then some corporate asking us whether they can use e-dirham or e-AED to pay the U.A.E. tax. And then another corporate talking to us that, okay, U.A.E. bought vaccine from China, okay, they make the payment now using US dollar. They ask whether they can, I mean, they're flexible because they pay Hong Kong, okay, instead of direct to China, okay, to my surprise. And then they said flexible to use EHKD or ECNY. And then international bank coming to us that they can design very promising products, CBDC products for their clients. So all these are very promising. Okay, that's current. And also starting to talk further to different entities. Infrastructure financing, that's probably another very high potential use cases. I don't know whether you're aware of that. The first overseas office of Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank was set up in Abu Dhabi, okay, only a couple months ago, okay? And that's the first office. And I spoke with the colleagues there, and then why U.A.E.? Okay, they say it's a natural choice because U.A.E. is in the crossroad of Europe and Asia. U.A.E. is the second largest economy in Middle East and North Africa as a major financial hub. Then I start the conversation, mBridge, can mBridge be the payment infrastructure to support the infrastructure financing? And then these people say, why not? Okay, we haven't gone to that use case yet, okay? But we're talking hundreds of those. I look at the list of projects, hundreds of these projects in one belt, one road, okay? And U.A.E. can play a very significant role in the one belt, one road infrastructure financing. And then another thing is, I think within the central bank, U.A.E., I believe is also among the central banks thinking about, you know, when we say business case, we also look at our own need as well. And then we need to look at a very safe and sound cross-border payment infrastructure that we can use in addition to correspondent banking. Okay, when we say safety, I mean, I think many central bank objective is what we mentioned, data privacy. Okay, definitely, I mean, central bank U.A.E. doesn't want any other jurisdiction, Hong Kong, China, Thailand, to see our transactions unless they are our counterpart. So we need 100% data security, data privacy, and the sovereignty control as well. Okay, we need full control of our own infrastructure, own operation. And Mr. Mu mentioned, because of the latest technology, we can own our own infrastructure to participate in this kind of cross-border payments. And then for soundness, we need highly resilient robustness. We cannot tolerate any disruption. And then at the moment, we see that that's happening. Okay, so these, I will see 3 major business cases that we have seen very relevant to us.
Thank you. I see we're already towards the end of the panel, so maybe closing question to you, Colin. What do you think we'll be doing in the year ahead on this project?
Well, I think a logical next step would be to proceed to the what we call the minimal viable product stage. Of course, the question is what to put in the MVP. On one aspect, on the system front, definitely. Currently, the system is like a pilot platform. There will be enhancement, and there may be new functions to be added. And then on the business front, there will be new use cases to be explored. And, but I think most importantly, we actually need to consider how to add value to the system so that the users will find an incentive to switch from the existing mode of operation to this new mBridge mode. I think that's an area that we need to put our heads together, especially in these few days. We have better discussions on how to expand or create more value to the potential users.
Yeah, thank you for that closing thought. And so probably within the room are several of the participating, or at least staff of the participating banks. The banks gave us a lot of feedback as part of the pilots. The whole point of pilots is to get feedback from the participants, in this case with the banks. And so we look forward to continued ideas from the banks, including, for example, products and services they can provide on FX and liquidity, for example, or secondly, thoughts that they have about how something like this, beyond the basic use case of speeding up transactions, which is already proven, how it could also improve other bank processes. So, and I'm thinking there, for example, reporting processes, or if there are any bright ideas on the AML side, we're open to it. So thank you. With that, I'll close the panel because we're out of time, and thank you so much for attending.